So I'm in a very lucky position because I'm going to show you earthquakes that are located by the Berkeley sensors, and I'm going to explain to you how you can relate this to your own home and your own loss using the peer framework. And Ken began the afternoon by pointing out that we are, as a state, slipping into deep denial. And this happens progressively with every year after the big earthquakes. And if you want field evidence, because I'm a geologist, I'll tell it to you. Find any bar that you go into that puts those 3 deep liquor bottles in a restrained manner. You won't see it. You know, it's behind, there's a mirrored surface, and there's glass shelves, then there's all those liquor bottles, and then those bartenders who are going to die in the earthquake, along with patrons. Would be so simple to restrain those bottles. You don't see that anywhere. Okay, there's the field evidence. It's indisputable. If you go to Japan, you cannot find a bar that does not restrain the bottles. So this is an indication that for all the bellowing that we've done at the USGS, et cetera, it's not coming through. So why isn't it coming through? And it's the belief of myself and my co-founder, Volkan Sebelgan, that the problem is we're not making risk personal. While it's important to know that somewhere in the Bay Area a large earthquake will strike in the next 30 years, what do I really care about? I care about my home, my family, and acting in my best financial and safety interest. So Temblors' hypothesis is that if we tell people that give this information easily and quickly for themselves, they can take action. So Temblor is just temblor.net. You can do this on your phone. You go in here where it says, click to use Temblor for free. I put in my email address, which is ross@temblor.net, and I say go, and I'm in the app. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to put terrain behind it. And what do I see right away? That where we are right now, we are sitting practically on one of the most dangerous faults in the country, the Hayward Fault. And you can see below that our hazard rank here is 79. Out of 100, the most hazardous site in the lower 48 of the United States, which happens to be Gilroy, is 100, and the lowest, which happens to be Iowa, is 0. So we're at 79. We're in rarefied air here. And just to give you a sense, if we bring this over to San Francisco, we drop to 60. If we move down here to the San Andreas Fault at Pacifica, we're in 70. So we'll go back to where we are here because Temblor can always find your location. You just open it up and there it is. And let's take a little deeper look. So these earthquakes, these green dots, are earthquakes that have occurred during the last month here. And I can keep zooming in, and I can put liquefaction up and say, well, liquefaction is when, due to the shaking, water squeezes up through the sand and soil, and buildings can sink and tilt. And that's what happened in Christchurch, New Zealand in 2010, and it was curtains for the entire downtown region of Christchurch as a result of liquefaction. So you can see that, forget about it, in the Berkeley Marina, we're actually doing quite a bit better over here, and so liquefaction really counts. People should be easily able to find this information to discover, am I buying a house in a place that could liquefy? So let's say I'm thinking of those beautiful Berkeley Hills. Then I'm starting to worry about landslides. I should not buy in the landslide. Or I may own my home, but not my property because I went downhill with it. People should be able to see this at any time, but particular when you're in the buying stream. When you're going to an open house, you should just be able to say, hey, this is not the house for me. I'm out of here. Okay, so that's what we're trying to provide to people, that easily accessible understanding of your hazard. And by the way, if I just kind of move things around here a little more, come down here to Hayward, the numbers start climbing. I start coming down to Fremont, the numbers get higher still. So the people who are living close to the Hayward Fault, they are taking a risk. And what we're calculating here is not one particular earthquake. It's all earthquakes, large and small, near and far, at their rate of occurrence. So it's a probabilistic calculation. So now let's go back to let's say, Hayward here, or even to where we are now. and slide down a little farther and say, okay, let's ask a few questions about your home. So if we know when your home was built and how big it is, we'll say 3,000 square feet, that we're calculating that it would cost about $900,000 to rebuild this house, then we can calculate what your chances of damage are in the next 30 years. So in other words, you have a 50% chance of no damage at all. That couldn't be too unreasonable. The last 30 years, we've had no damage at all. At the other end of the spectrum, we have a 1 in 14 chance of almost $600,000 of damage. It's like you're throwing darts at this thing. You have a better chance of hitting the blue area, but you could hit the red. So what does that red mean for you? It means that if you bought an earthquake insurance policy, a typical one with a 15% deductible, your chance of receiving some amount of payout is 1 in 6 over a 30-year period. If we looked at a shorter period, that number would be smaller. Now, the next thing we try to do is give you context for this. And here is, let me make this a little bigger, here is how that extensive earthquake damage stacks up against other things that most of us protect ourselves from or insure for. So for example, our home burning down or our car being totaled. Insurance isn't the whole deal. We use seat belts, we try not to text, and so we do things to make ourselves safer. But you can see that for the most part, we're ignoring this very large peril because it doesn't feel real. And what Temblor is trying to do is make it real and make it accessible. So then we say to this person, well, should you retrofit your home? And we calculate the cost of the retrofit for you based on the square footage of your home and its benefit, so we can say to you, look, the net benefit of your retrofit is $18,000 over this time period of interest for you. And because, as we've seen in previous slides, less stuff is going to fall on you, your likelihood of injury drops by a factor of 3. So we could go back up here, and we could change this into a retrofit home, or a home that meets a higher code standard. And now we had 1 in 15 chance of $600,000 of damage. Now it's 1 in 30. And look how that red zone has slid down in your list, because you've made yourself safer. So that's the kind of message that we want to give people. Now let's just go hunting a little bit more. So let's go to San Bernardino in Southern California. Look at that. I mean, San Bernardino, in addition to all of its other problems, is sitting between the San Andreas Fault and the San Jacinto Fault. It's really at the nexus of several different fault systems. It's filled with earthquakes. These red guys are ones that have occurred in the last 24 hours. They show up here within a few minutes of their occurrence. And so this person sees that they've got some issues. Now, what if I even make it more personal and go to my mom's condo in Santa Monica? 535 Ocean Avenue, Santa Monica. And what do I see? Ah! I let my mother buy a condominium on a fault. What kind of idiot am I? Now, she did that. She bought it 12 years ago. It's kind of difficult to figure out if you were on a fault at that time. It's kind of a difficult thing to find that information. And it's flat as a pancake. Even a geologist, you don't sense that there's a fault there. And now, when I was visiting her last, I was just jogging with my phone, and I could open up and say, oh my God, my mom's on a fault. So when she complains, my alibi is going to be that I didn't let her build on a landslide or a liquefaction zone. It's kind of a weak position to be in, but the goal is to make it obvious and to make it clear. So our strategy, which extends beyond the app, we also have a blog where we talk to people about earthquake stories and the recent earthquakes that have occurred, and we try to give insights and context for that, is to make hazard real as best we can, and to make these calculations personal, so you can see the benefits for acting in your best interest to make yourself safer. Thank you.